The Galactic Council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished obsidian, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of 1,000 stars visible through the transparent dome above. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated sections, each area carefully climate-controlled to accommodate the diverse biological needs of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. Ambassador Zexhai of the Vorthan Empire adjusted his ceremonial breathing apparatus as he reviewed the agenda displayed on his neural interface. The day's proceedings seemed routine enough. Trade disputes between the mining colonies of Kepler, 442b, territorial negotiations in the Andromeda Spiral, and the usual bureaucratic measures that kept galactic civilization functioning smoothly. What wasn't routine was the presence of the entity known simply as the Keeper, floating silently in the chamber center. The Keeper had appeared without warning 3 cycles ago, materializing through the Council's most advanced defensive systems as if they were mere suggestions. No weapons detected it. No sensors could properly scan it. The entity appeared as a shifting mass of dark energy, roughly humanoid in shape, with points of brilliant light that might have been eyes or stars scattered across its form. Council security had tried everything. Energy weapons passed through it harmlessly. Physical barriers meant nothing. Even the Zalarian mind readers, feared throughout the galaxy for their psychic abilities, reported encountering nothing but an endless void when they attempted to probe the creature's thoughts. So they did what any rational governing body would do. They gave it a seat at the table and pretended this was all perfectly normal. The floor recognizes the representative from the Corvin hegemony, announced Prime Chancellor Veltar, her 4 arms gesturing formally as she spoke into the translation matrix that would render her words comprehensible to all present species. Ambassador Korthak rose from his position, his insectoid features clicking with barely contained aggression. The Corvins were a proud warrior race, having conquered 17 systems through superior military technology and ruthless efficiency. They did not like mysteries, and they especially did not like entities that could bypass their defenses. Honored Chancellor, esteemed colleagues, Korthak began, his mandibles producing the harsh clicking sounds that the translators rendered as words. We gather today to address the elephant in the room. This creature has been present in our sacred chamber for 3 cycles without explanation, without purpose, and without invitation. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The thermal cot delegation began the low humming that indicated stress in their species, while the crystalline Zephyrians flickered with rapid color changes. We demand to know what it wants, Korthak continued, his compound eyes fixed on the Keeper. We demand to know why it's here. And we demand to know why the most powerful military forces in the galaxy cannot remove a single intruder from our midst. The Keeper had remained motionless throughout the Corvin's speech, but now it began to shift. The dark energy that comprised its form rippled like water, and the star points that served as its eyes grew brighter. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere and nowhere, resonating not through the air, but directly through the consciousness of every being present. You speak of demands, children of the young stars, the Keeper said, its words carrying a weight that seemed to press down upon the chamber itself. You have existed for mere millennia. Believe you can make demands of one who has walked between galaxies since before your ancestors crawled from whatever primordial pool spawned them. Ambassador Zexhai felt his breathing apparatus strain as the atmosphere processors struggled to compensate for the sudden change in pressure that accompanied the entity's voice. Around the chamber, other representatives showed similar signs of distress. I am here with a warning, the Keeper continued, its form slowly rotating as it addressed the entire assembly. A warning that your kind has earned through arrogance and ignorance. Prime Chancellor Veltar's voice carried a tremor she couldn't quite suppress. What warning do you bring us, honored Keeper? The entity's star eyes pulsed, and suddenly, the chamber's walls became transparent, revealing not the space station's corridors beyond, but something else entirely. Images flickered across the crystalline surfaces, worlds burning, ships torn apart by impossible forces, entire star systems going dark as their suns were somehow extinguished. "There's a world," the Keeper began, and the images shifted to show a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star that exists in what you call the outer spiral. A world that your records list as Earth in a primitive database you've compiled of developing civilizations. The inhabitants call themselves humans. Several representatives exchanged glances. The outer spiral was considered the galaxy's backwater, home to primitive species just beginning to master fire, agriculture, or at best, rudimentary spaceflight. Nothing of consequence had ever emerged from those distant reaches of space. "These humans," the Keeper continued, "are unlike anything your limited experience has prepared you to understand. They are survivors in ways that transcend your comprehension of the term. They are warriors who make your most feared soldiers seem like gentle children. They are innovators who will reshape reality itself to achieve their goals." Ambassador Korthak's mandibles clicked dismissively. "You speak in riddles, Ancient One. What threat could a pre-space civilization possibly pose to the combined might of the Galactic Council? Our records show they have barely achieved chemical propulsion." The Keeper's form suddenly expanded, filling a larger portion of the chamber, and the temperature dropped noticeably. "Your records show only what you wish to see, child of the dirt scratchers. You count their ships and measure their weapons and believe you understand them. But you do not see what drives them. You do not comprehend the force that lives within their souls." The images on the walls changed again, showing scenes from Earth's history, wars that raged for years, cities rebuilt from ashes again and again, humans charging in a certain death for causes their own leaders considered lost. Ships sailing into unknown oceans despite knowing that monsters might lurk beneath the waves. Explorers walking into frozen wastelands where no human had ever survived, simply because someone said it couldn't be done. They're a species that looks at the impossible and sees merely another challenge to overcome. The Keeper said, its voice now carrying harmonics that made several representatives clutch their heads in pain. They are creatures who will face extinction before they accept defeat. They are beings who have turned their own capacity for suffering into a weapon that can tear apart the foundations of reality. The chamber fell silent except for the labored breathing of various species trying to process what they were hearing. Finally, Prime Chancellor Veltar found her voice. "What exactly are you warning us against, Keeper? Are you saying this? Earth poses some future threat to galactic stability." The Keeper's laugh was like the sound of dying stars. "Future threat? Oh, children of the shallow waters, you still do not understand. I'm not warning you about what humans might become. I am warning you about what they already are." The images shifted once more, and now they showed something that made every military representative in the chamber lean forward in their seats. Human ships, but not the primitive chemical propulsion vessels their intelligence reports had documented. These were sleek, angular craft that moved through space with impossible grace. They were already out there, somewhere beyond the Council's monitored space. "My warning is simple," the Keeper said, its form beginning to fade slightly as if it were preparing to depart. "Never challenge Earth. Never threaten their world. Never give them a reason to turn their attention toward you. Because if you do, if you wake the sleeping dragon that is humanity's true nature, then all your mighty fleets, all your advanced technology, all your proud civilizations will be nothing more than obstacles for them to overcome." Ambassador Korthak stood again, his warrior pride finally, overcoming his growing unease. "You speak of a primitive species as if they were gods. We are the Corvin hegemony. We have conquered 17 star systems. Our battle fleets are the terror of 3 galactic arms." The Keeper turned its attention fully toward the Corvin representative, and Korthak felt something cold and vast focusing on him like a predator selecting its prey. "The humans have a saying," the Keeper said softly, its voice now barely above a whisper, but somehow more terrifying than its earlier thunderous pronouncements. They say that it is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. The entity paused, letting the words sink in before continuing. You, little conqueror, have spent your entire existence being a gardener who believes himself a warrior. When the humans come, not if, but when, you will learn the difference. And with those words, the keeper simply vanished, leaving behind only empty space and a chamber full of representatives who suddenly found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. In the silence that followed, no one noticed the small human observation probe that had been recording everything from its position in the asteroid belt of a nearby system, or the message it was already transmitting back to a seemingly primitive blue planet in the outer spiral. The warning had been given, but, as with most warnings, those who needed to heed it most were the least likely to listen. 3 months after the Keeper's warning, life in the Galactic Council had returned to what most representatives considered normal. The entity had not reappeared, and the unsettling prophecy about humanity had been filed away in the vast bureaucratic archives that recorded every paranormal occurrence, unexplained phenomenon, and administrative oddity that crossed the Council's path. Ambassador Korthak sat in his private quarters aboard the Corvin military station Bloodclaw's Fong, reviewing intelligence reports that his analysts had compiled about the human homeworld. The data was frustratingly sparse and contradictory. Long-range scans confirmed a technologically developing civilization, but the energy signatures didn't match any known progression patterns. Commander, he called to his aide, a younger Corvin whose mandibles bore the ritual scars of 7 victorious campaigns. What did our deep space reconnaissance find in the outer spiral? Commander Zixek approached with the careful precision that marked all Corvin military personnel. Sir, the reports are unusual. Our stealth probe was able to approach the human system undetected and conduct detailed scans. And what did you find? According to all our instruments, Earth shows exactly what we expected, a primitive civilization with basic satellite technology, chemical rockets, and radio communications. Population approximately 8 billion individuals engaged in typical pre-space activities. Korthak's compound eyes clicked with satisfaction. Excellent. So the ancient entity was simply attempting to intimidate us with ghost stories. But Zixek's posture suggested there was more to report. However, sir, there were some anomalies in our scans. What kind of anomalies? Energy readings that briefly spiked beyond our instrument's ability to measure, sir. And our probe's memory banks showed 3.7 seconds of missing data during its closest approach to the planet. Equipment malfunction? That was our initial assessment, sir. But when we attempted to recover the lost data using quantum reconstruction algorithms, we found something else. Zixek activated a holographic display that showed the probe's trajectory around Earth. For most of the orbital pattern, the path appeared normal, but during those missing 3.7 seconds, the probe had somehow moved from one side of the planet to the other, a distance that should have been impossible to traverse in that time frame. Our probe was caught, Zixek concluded grimly. Something on that primitive planet detected it, examined it, and then released it so quickly that our instruments couldn't register what happened. Ambassador Korthak stared at the holographic display, his mandibles clicking rhythmically as he processed this information. The pride of Corvin military technology was their stealth probe network, devices that could slip past the sensors of even the most advanced civilizations in the Council. Run the analysis again, he ordered. There must be some explanation. While Zixek began rerunning the probe data, neither Corvin was aware that at that exact moment, in a facility buried 3 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains of North America, Dr. Elena Vasquez was briefing her team on what they had discovered during their examination of the alien probe. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, addressing the assembled scientists, engineers, and military personnel, what we have here represents first contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. The probe was detected by our orbital defense grid approximately 47 minutes after it entered the solar system. General Harrison, a grizzled veteran whose weathered face had seen more conflicts than most nations, leaned forward in his chair. How do we detect it, Doc? I thought these aliens were supposed to be more advanced than us. Dr. Vasquez smiled grimly. They're more advanced, General. Their stealth technology is approximately 200 years ahead of anything in our public research files. We detected it because it was designed to hide from sensors like the ones they think we have. She activated a three-dimensional display that showed the probe's construction. The device was elegant in its simplicity, a crystalline matrix that bent electromagnetic radiation around itself, rendering it virtually invisible to conventional detection methods. The problem, she continued, is that our detection grid doesn't use conventional methods. Project Looking Glass has been operational for 15 years, using quantum entanglement sensors that monitor space-time distortion rather than electromagnetic signatures. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had developed technology that could detect objects specifically designed to hide from them, not through superior engineering, but through a completely different approach to the problem. What do we learn from examining the probe? Asked Dr. Sarah Chun, the project's xenotechnology specialist. Quite a bit. Their computer systems use quantum crystalline matrices that store information in 11 dimensions. Their power source is a miniaturized fusion reactor that could power a small city. Their material science is extraordinary. Some of these alloys shouldn't exist according to our current understanding of physics. General Harrison crossed his arms. Sounds like we're outclassed. In some areas, yes. But here's the interesting part. Dr. Vasquez brought up a new display showing the probe's scanning protocols. While we were examining their technology, we also analyzed what they were looking for. This probe was designed to scan for specific technological markers: fusion reactors, antimatter storage, coherent energy weapons, faster-than-light communication systems. But we don't have most of those things, observed Dr. Chun. Exactly. They were looking for advanced technology that follows conventional development patterns. They weren't looking for quantum computers, genetic engineering, nanotechnology, or artificial intelligence, areas where human development has taken unconventional paths. General Harrison's expression grew thoughtful. So they think we're primitive because we haven't developed the same technologies they expect advanced civilizations to develop? Worse than that, Dr. Vasquez replied. They think we're primitive because we've developed technologies they can't even detect. Our quantum computers are invisible to their scanning protocols. Our genetic modifications don't register on their biological sensors. Our AI systems operate on principles their digital forensics can't recognize. She paused to let this sink in before continuing. But the most interesting discovery was in the probe's memory banks. It was transmitting data to a military vessel belonging to something called the Corvin hegemony. The same Corvin hegemony that, according to the probe's databases, has conquered 17 star systems through superior military technology. The room's temperature seemed to drop several degrees as the assembled personnel realized what this meant. They're military scouts, General Harrison stated flatly. It appears so, and based on the data streams we intercepted, they're not just studying us out of scientific curiosity. They're conducting a threat assessment. Dr. Chun raised her hand. What kind of threat could they possibly think we pose? According to you, their technology is centuries ahead of ours in most areas. Dr. Vasquez's smile was neither warm nor reassuring. That's the problem, Dr. Chun. We don't know what they think we are, but we know what they're wrong about. They think they're observing a primitive civilization that poses no threat to galactic stability. They have no idea that while they were scanning us, we were reverse engineering their technology. She brought up a final display that showed technical schematics. In the 37 minutes we had to examine their probe, our AI systems were able to map their computer architecture, decode their databases, and identify 17 critical vulnerabilities in their defensive systems. We also managed to plant a small quantum virus in their memory banks that will activate if they attempt any hostile action against Earth. General Harrison leaned back in his chair, his expression grim. So we're in a situation where they think we're helpless and we know enough about them to be dangerous. That's not a stable situation. No, it's not, Dr. Vasquez agreed. Especially since the probe's databases contained recordings of something called the Galactic Council, where an entity known as the Keeper specifically warned them never to challenge Earth. And how did they respond to that warning? Dr. Vasquez pulled up the recorded conversation from the council chambers, translated into English by their quantum computers. As the team listened to the Keeper's warning and the dismissive responses from various council members, the room grew increasingly tense. When the recording ended, General Harrison was the first to speak. So we have an ancient entity, something that terrifies the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, telling them to leave us alone. And their response is to send military reconnaissance probes to assess our threat level. That about sums it up. Dr. Chun raised another concern. What happens when they realize their probe was compromised? Based on what we learned about Corvin psychology from their databases, they'll probably assume it was a technical malfunction rather than admit their technology was defeated by a primitive species. General Harrison stood up, his decision made. Dr. Vasquez, how long would it take us to build countermeasures for their weapons systems? Based on the schematics we recovered, approximately 6 months for basic defensive measures, 18 months for a full military response capability. And how long before they realize we're not what they think we are? Dr. Vasquez consulted her data displays one final time. Unknown, sir. But if they follow standard Corvin military doctrine, they'll want to conduct a show of force before attempting any conquest. They'll want to demonstrate their superiority and demand our surrender. How long do we have? Best estimate? 12 to 15 months before they arrive with a full battle fleet. General Harrison nodded grimly. Then, we'd better get to work. Because apparently, the galaxy just declared war on humanity without realizing it. As the meeting dispersed and teams began implementing emergency protocols, none of them noticed the small quantum fluctuation in the facility's power grid, a fluctuation that transmitted everything they had discussed to a monitoring station on the far side of the moon, where other humans had been preparing for this moment for much longer than anyone on Earth suspected. 8 months had passed since the probe incident, and Ambassador Korthak stood on the command bridge of the Worldbreaker, the pride of the Corvin Imperial Fleet. Around him, 47 vessels of various sizes formed the largest military expedition the Corvin hegemony had ever assembled for what their analysts considered a routine primitive world pacification. Status report, Korthak commanded, his mandibles clicking with anticipation. Captain Vortak, a seasoned warrior whose carapace bore the scars of 14 successful campaigns, approached with the confident stride of someone who had never faced defeat. All vessels report ready for combat operations, Ambassador. Our fleet includes 12 Dreadnought-class battleships, 23 heavy cruisers, and 12 support vessels. Total complement, 47,000 warriors. And our intelligence on the human defensive capabilities? Essentially non-existent, sir. Long-range scans continue to show a primitive civilization with basic chemical propulsion and radio communication. No evidence of energy weapons, defensive shields, or space-based military installations. Korthak's compound eyes gleamed with satisfaction. This would be a glorious addition to his military record, the conquest of an entire species with minimal resistance. After the campaign, he would return to the Council as a hero, and perhaps the other member species would finally show the Corvin hegemony the respect they deserved. How long until we reach their system? Approximately 6 hours until we drop out of hyperspace at the edge of their solar system. What Ambassador Korthak didn't know was that his fleet had been detected the moment they entered hyperspace 8 days earlier. The quantum distortion caused by 47 ships traveling faster than light had registered on human sensors that the Corvins didn't even know existed. In a hidden facility beneath Luna's surface, Admiral Sarah Mitchell reviewed the tactical display showing the incoming Corvin fleet. The lunar base had been humanity's best-kept secret for over 30 years, officially non-existent even in classified government files. Analysis confirms their fleet composition, reported Commander David Park, the base's chief intelligence officer. 12 heavy battleships, 23 cruisers, and 12 support vessels. Based on the schematics we recovered from their probe, each battleship carries enough firepower to sterilize a continent. Admiral Mitchell nodded grimly. And our response capability? Project Guardian is fully operational. All 18 defense platforms are charged and ready. The Defiance and Resolution are standing by in Earth orbit, though they're maintaining stealth protocols. Surface-based installations are armed and coordinated. The Admiral studied the holographic display showing Earth's actual defensive network, a carefully hidden system that had been under development since humanity first detected signals indicating they weren't alone in the galaxy. To any external observer, Earth appeared defenseless. The reality was considerably different. What about the civilian population? Emergency broadcasts are ready to transmit, but we're maintaining normal operations until the last possible moment. The cover story about a solar observation exercise is in place if we need to explain any unusual activity. Admiral Mitchell understood the delicate balance they were trying to maintain. If humanity's true capabilities were revealed too early, it would change everything, not just Earth's relationship with this Corvan hegemony, but with whatever other civilizations were watching from the shadows. Time until they arrive? 5 hours, 37 minutes. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council chambers, an emergency session had been called. News of the Corvan military expedition had reached the other member species, and reactions ranged from concerned to horrified. Prime Chancellor Veltar addressed the assembly with barely controlled anxiety. The floor recognizes Ambassador Zexhai of the Vorthan Empire. The Vorthan representative rose slowly, his breathing apparatus cycling with visible agitation. Honored colleagues, we are gathered here because one of our member species has chosen to ignore the explicit warning of the Keeper regarding the world called Earth. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Several species had been growing increasingly uncomfortable with Corvan aggression over the past few years, but none had been willing to challenge their military might directly. The Thermalcod delegation wishes to formally protest this action, announced their representative, a crystalline being whose surface flickered with rapid color changes indicating extreme stress. The Keeper's warning was clear: never challenge Earth. The Corvans have chosen to interpret this as a dare rather than wisdom. From his section of the chamber, Ambassador Korthax, second-in-command, Subcommander Karhex, rose to defend his people's actions. The Corvan hegemony does not bow to the ravings of mysterious entities. We are a military power with obligations to maintain galactic order. A primitive species cannot be allowed to remain unregulated simply because an unknown creature claims they are dangerous. Unknown creature? The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, and the chamber's temperature dropped noticeably. The Keeper had returned. The entity materialized in the center of the chamber, its dark energy formed more agitated than before. The star points that served as its eyes pulsed with rhythms that hurt to observe directly. I gave you a warning, children of the shallow seas, the Keeper said, its voice carrying harmonics that made several representatives clutch their heads in pain. I told you never to challenge Earth. And yet your warriors even now approach their system with weapons raised and conquest in their hearts. Subcommander Karhex found his courage and stood to face the entity. We are not children to be frightened by your theatrics, Ancient One. We are the Corvan hegemony, conquerors of 17 star systems. Whatever these humans possess, it cannot stand against our military might. The Keeper turned its attention toward the Corvan representative, and Karhex immediately regretted speaking. Your pride will be your destruction, warrior of the Dirt Scratchers. But not just your destruction, you have doomed others as well. The chamber's walls became transparent again, showing images that made every representative lean forward in their seats. They could see the Corvan fleet approaching Earth's solar system, but they could also see something else. energy signatures that didn't match anything in their databases. What are we looking at? Prime Chancellor Veltar asked, her voice barely above a whisper. You are seeing the moment when the galaxy learns what humans truly are, the Keeper replied. Watch, and understand why I warned you to leave them in peace. The display zoomed in on Earth itself, and what the representatives saw defied their understanding. The planet that their instruments had always shown as primitive was surrounded by a network of defensive installations that had somehow remained invisible to every scanning attempt. Massive orbital platforms hung in space like sleeping giants, their weapons systems charging with energy outputs that exceeded most planetary defense grids. Ships that had been disguised as asteroids or debris were powering up their engines, revealing sleek predatory forms that moved through space with impossible grace. But most unsettling of all were the readings coming from Earth's surface, energy signatures that suggested the entire planet was a weapon. This is impossible, Subcommander Karhek stammered. Our intelligence reports show no such capabilities. Your intelligence reports show exactly what the humans wanted you to see, the Keeper replied, its voice now carrying what might have been amusement. They have been watching you watch them for decades. They know everything about your technology, your tactics, your weaknesses. And now they are about to demonstrate why I warned you never to challenge their world. As if responding to the Keeper's words, the display showed the Corvin fleet dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. For a moment, everything appeared normal. 47 ships against one primitive planet. Then, the humans opened fire. What followed was unlike anything the Council representatives had ever witnessed. The Corvin ships, protected by shields that could deflect the weapons of any known civilization, began exploding with surgical precision. Human weapons punched through their defenses as if they were made of paper, targeting critical systems with accuracy that suggested intimate knowledge of Corvin ship design. But it wasn't just the effectiveness of the attack that shocked the observers. It was the restraint. Human weapons disabled ship after ship without destroying them completely, leaving the crews alive but helpless. They're not trying to kill them, Prime Chancellor Veltar observed with amazement. No, the Keeper agreed. They're making a point. They want survivors to carry the message back to you. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, the pride of the Corvin Imperial fleet hung dead in space, their weapons offline, their engines disabled, their communications systems functioning just well enough to call for help. Then, something even more extraordinary happened. Human ships, sleek vessels that moved like living things through the void, approached the disabled Corvin fleet. Instead of finishing their destruction, they began broadcasting on Corvin emergency frequencies. This is Admiral Sarah Mitchell of the Terran Defense Force. The message began, translated into perfect Corvin despite the fact that humans supposedly had no knowledge of their language. Your fleet has been disabled, but not destroyed. Medical assistance is being dispatched to vessels with life support failures. Your crews will be returned to Corvin space unharmed. The message continued, but now it was being broadcast on frequencies that reached the Galactic Council itself. To the civilizations observing this engagement, Earth extends greetings. We have been aware of your presence for some time, and we regret that first contact has come under these circumstances. However, we will not tolerate military action against our world or our people. In the council chamber, shocked silence reigned as the implications of what they had witnessed began to sink in. The humans had not only defeated the Corvin fleet, they had done so while simultaneously demonstrating technological superiority, strategic awareness, and moral restraint that exceeded anything the Council had previously encountered. How is this possible? Subcommander Karhex asked, his voice barely functioning. The Keeper's form began to fade, its task apparently complete. Because, child of the proud fools, humans are what you would become if you possessed the courage to face the universe as it truly is, rather than as you wish it to be. But they were supposed to be primitive, Karhex protested weakly. They were primitive, the Keeper replied, its voice now echoing from a great distance. Primitive by your standards, advanced by measures you cannot comprehend. They built their strength through suffering you cannot imagine, developed their technology through methods you never considered, and achieved unity through trials that would have destroyed your entire species. The entity's final words resonated through the chamber long after it had vanished. And now, children of the shallow seas, you must decide whether you wish to learn from them or be taught by them. Because humanity has officially entered galactic politics, and they will not be ignored again. As emergency sessions began throughout the chamber and urgent communications flew between the home systems of 47 different species, one fact became crystal clear to every representative present. The galaxy had just changed forever, and there was no going back to the way things had been before the Keeper's warning when unheeded Ambassador Korthak sat in what had once been his command chair aboard the Worldbreaker. Now nothing more than a piece of expensive furniture in a powerless hulk drifting in the outer edge of Earth's solar system. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across the bridge, and the acrid smell of burned electronics filled the recycled air. His pride, his fleet, his entire military career, all of it lay in ruins around him. 47 ships of the Corvan Imperial Navy hung dead in space, their weapons systems methodically disabled by an enemy that had demonstrated technological superiority so complete it bordered on the incomprehensible. "Sir," Commander Vortak approached hesitantly, his scarred carapace dulled by the emergency lighting. "The humans are requesting permission to board our vessel." Korthak's mandibles clicked with bitter irony. The humans were asking permission. After demonstrating they could destroy his entire fleet without apparent effort, they were observing diplomatic protocol. "Grant them permission," he said quietly. "What choice do we have?" Minutes later, the external sensors detected a small craft approaching the Worldbreaker. The vessel was unlike anything in Corvan databases, sleek, organic-looking, and moving through space with a grace that suggested it was as much grown as built. The airlock cycled, and 3 figures in environmental suits entered the bridge. As they removed their helmets, Korthak got his first look at the species that had just humiliated the greatest military force the Corvan hegemony could muster. They were smaller than he had expected, bipedal mammals with soft-looking skin and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. The leader, a female based on the biological markers Corvan sensors could detect, approached with a confident but non-threatening posture. "I'm Admiral Sarah Mitchell of the Terran Defense Force," she said, her words automatically translated by a device she wore at her throat. "I want to assure you that your crews are safe and will be returned to Corvan space as promised." Korthak struggled to process the situation. In Corvan culture, defeated enemies were either executed or enslaved. The concept of honorable treatment of prisoners was alien to everything he understood about warfare. "Why?" he asked simply. Admiral Mitchell studied him for a moment before responding. "Because this doesn't have to be the beginning of a war, Ambassador. This can be the beginning of understanding." She gestured, and one of her companions activated a holographic display showing the tactical engagement that had just concluded. Korthak watched in fascination and horror as the battle was replayed from the human perspective. "Your fleet was detected 8 days ago when you entered hyperspace," Admiral Mitchell explained. "We've been tracking your approach and analyzing your ship configuration since then. Every vessel in your fleet was comprehensively scanned and assessed before you arrived." The display showed the moment of engagement from multiple angles. Korthak could see now how precisely the human weapons had been targeted, disabling power systems without breaching life support, knocking out weapons without destroying the ships themselves. "You could have destroyed us completely," he realized. "Yes, but destruction serves no purpose here. You came to assess a threat and establish dominance over what you believed was a primitive species. Instead, you've discovered that Earth is neither primitive nor defenseless. The question now is what happens next." Admiral Mitchell moved to stand in front of the bridge's main view screen, which still functioned despite the ship's disabled status. Through the transparent aluminum, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the star field. Your people made an assumption based on incomplete information, she continued. You saw a planet with basic radio communications and chemical propulsion and concluded we were centuries behind your technology. But technological development doesn't always follow the same path. She activated another display, this one showing human technological development over the past century. Korthak watched in fascination as the progression unfolded. Not the linear advancement he was accustomed to seeing, but something more complex and unpredictable. While your civilizations were perfecting fusion reactors and faster-than-light travel, we were developing quantum computing and genetic engineering. While you were building larger ships and more powerful weapons, we were learning to make smaller, smarter, more efficient systems. The display shifted to show comparative analyses between human and Corvan technology. In some areas, the Corvans held clear advantages. Their ships were larger, their energy weapons more powerful, their manufacturing capabilities more advanced. But in others, human technology was so far ahead that it seemed almost magical. Your stealth probe was detected because it was designed to hide from sensors like the ones you expected us to have, Admiral Mitchell explained. But we don't use electromagnetic sensors for deep space surveillance. We use quantum entanglement detectors that monitor space-time distortion. Commander Vortak spoke for the first time since the humans had boarded. How did you know our language? How did you know our ship designs? How did you know exactly where to target our systems? The third human, a man who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. Because we've been studying you for 30 years, Commander. Every probe you sent into this system, every scanning sweep you conducted, every piece of data you transmitted, we've been watching and learning. He introduced himself as Dr. James Crawford, and as he spoke, Korthak began to understand the true scope of human capabilities. We've had observation posts throughout this region of space since 2387, Dr. Crawford continued. Disguised as asteroids, comets, and space debris, we've been monitoring galactic communications, studying your technologies, and preparing for the day when contact became inevitable. But why remain hidden? Korthak asked. With your technological capabilities, you could have announced your presence to the Galactic Council decades ago. Admiral Mitchell's expression grew somber. Because we learned very quickly that the galaxy is not a peaceful place, Ambassador. We monitored your campaigns against the Xerian Republic. We watched the Thermalka incident. We saw what happened to the Valerian colonies when they tried to resist Corvan expansion. The display showed images that made Korthak shift uncomfortably. Records of Corvan military actions that demonstrated the brutal efficiency with which his people had built their empire. We realized that revealing ourselves too early would result in exactly what happened here, Admiral Mitchell continued. A military assessment followed by conquest or destruction. So we waited, and we prepared. Prepared for what? For the day when humanity would have to defend itself against a galaxy that sees peaceful species as targets for expansion. Dr. Crawford activated another set of displays, these showing the broader strategic situation. Your fleet wasn't just detected by Earth, Ambassador. Every major power in the Council sphere has been monitoring this engagement. Right now, 46 different civilizations are analyzing the data from this battle and reassessing everything they thought they knew about the balance of power in this region of space. The implications began to dawn on Korthak. This wasn't just a military defeat. It was a fundamental shift in galactic politics. Humanity had announced their presence to the entire galaxy by defeating the most feared military force in Council space. What happens to us now? Commander Vortak asked. Admiral Mitchell considered the question carefully. That depends on what you do when you return to Corvan space. You can report this as a catastrophic military defeat and recommend immediate retaliation. Or you can report this as an opportunity for the Corvan hegemony to establish relations with a new spacefaring civilization. She moved closer to Korthak, her expression serious but not threatening. Your people value strength, Ambassador. Today you've seen strength. But human strength isn't just about weapons and technology. It's about choosing when to fight and when to show mercy. It's about turning enemies into allies when possible. Korthak's mandibles clicked slowly as he processed this. In his culture, strength was demonstrated through conquest and domination. The idea that mercy could be a form of strength was alien to everything he had been taught. The Keeper warned the Council never to challenge Earth. Admiral Mitchell continued. Now you understand why. Not because we would destroy any fleet that threatened us, though we could, but because we have the capability to change the fundamental nature of galactic civilization. She gestured toward the view screen, where Earth continued to hang peacefully in space. We're offering the galaxy a choice, Ambassador. Continue the cycle of conquest and domination that has characterized interstellar politics for millennia, or join us in building something better. Dr. Crawford stepped forward with a datapad. These are our formal diplomatic credentials, along with a comprehensive technological exchange proposal. We're prepared to share certain human innovations with species that demonstrate a genuine commitment to peaceful coexistence. Korthak stared at the device, understanding that he held in his hands the power to reshape not just human-Corvan relations, but the entire structure of galactic civilization. Why? He asked again. Why offer alliance to those who came to conquer you? Admiral Mitchell smiled, and for the first time since the engagement began, Korthak saw something in her expression that reminded him of the entity called the Keeper, an ancient wisdom that seemed to transcend the immediate situation. Because, Ambassador, that's what humans do. We turn our enemies into our allies. We transform conflict into cooperation. And we never accept defeat as permanent. It's what makes us human. She moved toward the airlock, then paused to look back at the two Corvan officers. Your ships will be repaired and supplied for the journey home. Your crews will receive full medical attention. And when you return to the Council, you'll carry with you proof that Earth seeks peace, but is prepared for war. As the humans departed, leaving Korthak alone with his thoughts and the most important decision in Corvan history, he realized that the Keeper had been right about everything. Humanity was indeed unlike anything the galaxy had encountered before. The question now was whether the galaxy was ready to learn from them, or whether it would force them to become teachers through example rather than choice 6 months after the battle that would become known throughout the galaxy as the Earth Demonstration. The Galactic Council Chamber hosted the most significant diplomatic gathering in its 3,000-year history. Representatives from all 47 member species were present, along with delegations from 12 non-aligned civilizations that had requested observer status for this historic occasion. For the first time since the chamber's construction, additional seating had been installed to accommodate the unprecedented attendance. But the focus of every being present was directed toward a simple podium at the center of the chamber, where Ambassador Elena Vasquez of the newly recognized Terran Republic would address the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. Prime Chancellor Veltar called the session to order, her 4 arms trembling slightly as she spoke into the translation matrix. The Council recognizes the representative of Earth, Ambassador Vasquez, who will present humanity's formal address to the galactic community. Elena Vasquez rose from her seat with the calm confidence that had made her the obvious choice to serve as humanity's first galactic ambassador. A former physicist turned diplomat, she had spent the past 6 months in intensive preparation for this moment, studying the political dynamics of 47 different civilizations while helping to craft humanity's response to their sudden emergence onto the galactic stage. Honored representatives, esteemed colleagues, she began, her words automatically translated into dozens of languages by the Chamber's advanced systems. I stand before you today not as a conqueror or a supplicant, but as a representative of a species that seeks to contribute to the betterment of all galactic civilization. She paused, allowing her words to sink in, then activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. The image showed Earth as it truly was, not the primitive world that Council intelligence had reported, but a thriving planet whose population had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. For the past century, humanity has been preparing for this moment, she continued. Not preparing for war, though we have developed the means to defend ourselves, but preparing to join a galactic community that we hoped would embrace diversity of thought, innovation, and peaceful cooperation. The display shifted to show images from Earth's hidden space program, orbital habitats, asteroid mining facilities, and interstellar observation posts that have been monitoring Council space for decades. During our period of observation, we learned much about the civilizations represented in this chamber. We studied your technologies, your cultures, your histories. But most importantly, we studied your conflicts. The images changed again, showing the various wars, conquests, and territorial disputes that had characterized recent galactic history. Several representatives shifted uncomfortably as their species' military actions were displayed with clinical precision. We observed a galaxy where strength was measured by the ability to dominate others, where technological advancement was primarily directed toward military applications, and where diplomatic solutions were often considered signs of weakness. Ambassador Zexhai of the Vorthan Empire raised one of his breathing apparatus tubes in the gesture that indicated a desire to speak. Ambassador Vasquez, are you suggesting that the Council's approach to interstellar relations has been somehow deficient? Elena smiled diplomatically. I'm suggesting, honored ambassador, that there may be alternative approaches that benefit all parties involved. Earth's proposal to this council is not a criticism of your methods, but an offer to explore new possibilities. She gestured, and the display changed to show Earth's technological development over the past 2 centuries. Unlike the linear progression typical of most spacefaring civilizations, human advancement appeared chaotic, unpredictable, and impossibly rapid in certain areas. Humanity developed differently than most species, Elena explained. While you were perfecting established technologies, we were exploring entirely new paradigms. While you were building bigger ships, we were learning to make smaller, more efficient systems. While you were developing more powerful weapons, we were creating technologies that make conflict unnecessary. The display showed examples that made several representatives lean forward in their seats. Medical technologies that could regenerate lost limbs, agricultural systems that could feed billions while using minimal resources, energy generation methods that produced no waste or pollution. But our greatest achievement, Elena continued, was not technological. It was social. Humanity has achieved something that the galaxy has never seen: a unified global government that maintains cultural diversity while eliminating large-scale conflict. This caused a stir throughout the chamber. The idea of a species achieving unity without conquest was so foreign to most representatives that they struggled to comprehend it. Subcommander Carr Hex of the Corvin delegation, who had returned from Earth bearing Ambassador Korthak's recommendation for diplomatic engagement, spoke up. How is such unity possible without subjugation of weaker groups? Through a concept we call complementary cooperation, Elena replied. Instead of viewing differences as threats to be eliminated, we learn to see them as strengths to be utilized. Our global government doesn't rule over diverse cultures. It coordinates their unique contributions toward common goals. She activated a new display showing Earth's governmental structure, which resembled nothing any council species had ever encountered. Instead of hierarchical dominance systems, it showed an interconnected network where authority flowed based on expertise and need rather than military or economic power. This approach allowed us to solve problems that have plagued galactic civilization for millennia, Elena continued. Resource scarcity, territorial disputes, technological stagnation, cultural conflicts. These issues become opportunities for innovation when approached through complementary cooperation rather than competitive dominance. From his position in the chamber's upper gallery, the entity known as the Keeper materialized without warning. Several representatives flinched as the ancient being's presence filled the space with its familiar aura of vast age and incomprehensible knowledge. The child speaks wisdom, representatives of the shallow waters, the Keeper said, its voice resonating through the chamber. Humanity has achieved what you have considered impossible because they faced truths you have chosen to ignore. Elena showed no surprise at the Keeper's appearance, suggesting that humanity had been in contact with the entity for some time. The Keeper has served as an informal advisor during our preparation for galactic contact, she explained. Its perspective on the long-term development of galactic civilization has been invaluable. This revelation sent shockwaves through the chamber. The mysterious entity that had terrified council representatives for cycles had been working with the humans. Prime Chancellor Veltar found her voice. What truths are we supposed to have ignored, Keeper? The ancient being turned its attention toward the Chancellor, and its response carried the weight of eons. That strength without wisdom leads to stagnation. That conquest without purpose leads to decay. That dominance without cooperation leads to extinction. Elena stepped forward, reclaiming the chamber's attention. Earth's proposal to the Galactic Council is simple. The formation of a new alliance based on complementary cooperation rather than hierarchical dominance. Member species would maintain their autonomy while contributing their unique strengths toward common goals. The display showed what such an alliance might look like. Trade networks that benefited all participants, research collaborations that accelerated technological development, conflict resolution systems that addressed root causes rather than symptoms. The benefits of such cooperation have already been demonstrated, Elena continued. In the 6 months since the Earth demonstration, 17 Council species have established preliminary research agreements with Earth. The results have exceeded all expectations. She showed examples that made even the most skeptical representatives take notice. The thermal Ka had solved energy production problems that had limited their expansion for centuries. The Vorthan had developed new atmospheric processing techniques that would allow them to colonize previously uninhabitable worlds. Even the Corvins had quietly implemented human-designed efficiency improvements to their manufacturing systems. But the most significant change, Elena said, is not technological. It's philosophical. The species that have embraced complementary cooperation have seen dramatic reductions in internal conflicts, increased innovation rates, and improved quality of life for their populations. Ambassador Korthak, who had been silent throughout the presentation, finally spoke. Ambassador Vasquez, the Corvin hegemony formally requests full membership in any alliance Earth wishes to establish. This announcement stunned the chamber. The most militaristic species in Council space was publicly abandoning their dominance-based approach in favor of human-proposed cooperation. The humans defeated our fleet without destroying it, Korthak continued, addressing the assembled representatives. They could have humiliated us, enslaved us, or conquered our worlds. Instead, they offered us partnership. In 6 months of cooperation, the Corvin hegemony has achieved more scientific advancement than in the previous century of conquest. One by one, other species began to voice their support for Elena's proposal. The Thermal Ka, the Vorthan, the Zephyrians, even several of the more isolationist species expressed interest in exploring this new approach to galactic relations. As the session continued, it became clear that something unprecedented was happening. For the first time in galactic history, species were choosing cooperation over competition, partnership over dominance, innovation over stagnation. The Keeper, still hovering in the chamber's center, turned its attention toward Elena one final time. You have done well, child of the young star. Your species has chosen a difficult path, but one that leads to genuine strength. Elena bowed respectfully toward the ancient entity. We learned from the best teacher possible, honored Keeper. The galaxy itself showed us what doesn't work, which made it easier to develop what does. As the session concluded and species began forming working groups to explore the details of humanity's proposal, the Keeper prepared to depart. But before it vanished, it left the assembled representatives with one final observation. I warned you never to challenge Earth, because I knew what you would discover, the ancient being said. Not that humans are unconquerable warriors, but that there's something far more dangerous to your old ways. They're proof that there is a better path forward. And now, children of the shallow seas, you must choose whether to follow that path or be left behind as the galaxy evolves around you. With those words, the keeper vanished, leaving behind a chamber full of representatives who suddenly understood that they weren't just witnessing the emergence of a new species. They were witnessing the birth of a new era in galactic civilization. As Elena Vasquez collected her materials and prepared to begin the most intensive diplomatic negotiations in galactic history, she reflected on humanity's long journey from a hidden observer to the catalyst for galactic transformation. The Keeper had warned the Council never to challenge Earth, but in the end, the greatest challenge humanity presented wasn't military. It was the challenge of proving that there was a better way to live among the stars. And, judging by the enthusiastic discussions already beginning throughout the chamber, the galaxy was finally ready to learn.